How we doing? Oh, I'm wonderful. Fall's already hit in Buffalo. Is it? That's typical fall in Buffalo. 3 days at 50, and then you hit 90. So
The story this week, kind of locally, especially, has been with Joe, right? So
Yeah.
I figured you knew you'd
Yeah.
asked about him.
yeah,
What has allowed him to be able to be successful, at least from what we saw on Saturday? And can you kind of describe what you see in his game?
Joe's a guy who he doesn't say much, but it's just when anybody gets an opportunity to really prove themselves, right? And I think I said it before, but it's that working while you wait. He didn't get a ton of reps in training camp. Obviously now his reps have picked up, with player availability at that position. And when he has had his opportunity, it's been solid. And for a guy that came from his upbringing in football, and to be a tryout player and to go into that situation that he was in. I mean, he was going against NFL starters. It's just really cool to see. I mean, I think you just see the professionalism in him, how smart he is, and obviously he showed some things in that game. But it's one game. It's one game, and the true sign of a pro is consistency. So, that's what we got to see out of all our players.
What's it like for you this week? As a sports fan, I mean, this story is awesome and everybody's rooting for him. But you're also one of the guys that has a big hand in deciding eventually, potentially, that this guy's not one of our best 3, or this guy's not one of our best 69. What is it like for you to deal with that?
We're going to do, in the end, our job is to do what's best for the organization. We care for all these guys, but there is a business side of things, and I'll be honest, it sucks. It sucks, when you get to those moments in our calendar where you have to part with people. It's never easy. You build relationships with these guys, but that whole aspect of thing, not one coach in this building would tell you they enjoy that. You know what I mean? But in the end, the bottom line is we got to do what's best for the Buffalo Bills to achieve our goals and have success.
As Cole gets wrapped up now after a long layoff, how quickly will you be able to tell whether he's kept up mentally? We've
been able to do a couple things, here and there to and Joe Dana does a great job. He does a great job. And, we've used some different, resources and things of that nature, different ways we can test him mentally. But, when the bullets are flying, on game day or even in practice for that matter, it's different. So, it's a day-by-day process. And, he's got to continue to grow. And going back to being part of a pro is finding ways you can grow when you're in those situations. And that can't always be the coach forcing you to do things. And Cole's a fairly mature football player that knows he's behind the 8 ball. It's not like he's like, oh, I'll go in there and be fine. He knows he's got to be up to snuff with the rest of the guys. So there's a lot of things going on with him as far as us keeping that mental side, sharp.
Minus Matt now for a while, linebacker. What kind of blow was that to the staff? When you planned for him for so long.
To the staff.
Sort of recalibrate.
The first part with Matt is obviously I have a relationship with him. Coached him for 2 years, been around him since 2017. The personal side is the hardest side, for someone like me that has a relationship with him, because you see a guy that works so hard, from last year to get back and really was, finding his groove and those type of things. It's tough, man. It's tough from a personal side. Like football, we'll figure it out. That's our jobs. That's what all our jobs in this building are. But the personal side for me with Matt was hard for me. It was hard for me. And, Matt's as tough as they come, as resilient as they come. Really, I think if a lot of young guys would want to model their approach to the game and the way they attack the whole process of being a pro football player, whether it's taking care of your body, what you eat, your attention to detail, your love for your teammates. Matt's a model of that, and that really to me is what sucks. Is not only we all know who Matt is on the field, but it's just his presence and his professional approach to the game of football that can rub off on everybody. So we'll figure the football stuff out. That's our jobs. So for me, it's more about the personal side of things.
From your side of the ball, you lost Micah and Jordan. Team-wide, 6 of 8 team captains from last year are no longer here. How do you feel like that leadership void has been filled or is going to be filled for the team this year, and specifically on the defensive side for you?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing, and I talked about this before, is we're not going to force anything. That's got to be kind of an organic process as far as just it'll play out the way it's supposed to play out, because there's a lot of things that go into leadership. There's a lot of things, and the first thing is credibility. And if you're not a credible person that's trying to lead, no, you're not a leader. No one's going to follow you. So I think we're seeing leadership traits in a lot of guys that were probably there already, but we had a lot of guys that had already kind of established themselves in that role, right? And these professional athletes know that we lost, and you could call it a little bit of a void in that leadership, but there's guys that'll step up. I already see some people stepping up, and it'll really take form. If it hasn't already, it's going to take form when it's ready, and it's working that direction, and we'll be just fine.
Who's emerged in that regard, and has anyone emerged that maybe you wouldn't have expected?
Yeah, I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a couple guys that have emerged. I don't want to put any expectations on players or anything like that. Like I said, I want to let it happen organically and just kind of let the chips fall where we need them to. Not try to force anything on anybody. So there's a couple guys that are doing some good things, and there's different types of leadership, right? Like vocal, lead by example, and we have a lot of different people in those ranges of leadership that are stepping up.
Last full season, he had 99 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback hits, 3 interceptions, 11 passes defense, 1.5 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and a touchdown. So, how do you figure that out? That's a lot to figure out how to replace that, right?
Well, the first thing I'll say, I figure out that he overcame his coaching. Look, the NFL is a league that's got great players everywhere. And your job is to put yourself in position every play in the event that a play reveals itself to where I've put myself in that position and you make plays. We're not coaching to every play intercept the ball. We're coaching, using interceptions as an example, we're coaching them that if the ball shows up, now it's your opportunity. If we blitz you, there's an opportunity there. So I guess the best way I can say it is that, we're not coaching, we're not results-based. We've never been results-based here. Are they excellent? Yes, good results are excellent for all of us. But we coach them first how they could put themselves in position if, for instance, the ball was thrown my direction. What position do I need to be in? And then when the opportunity arises, now the second part of that is, how do I intercept the ball? How do I force a fumble? How do I beat a back in protection? How do I beat the left tackle? You know what I'm saying? So, or how do I sack this quarterback because it's a mobile quarterback? So we're 80, that's a bad percentage. We're 60% process and 40% result when it comes to coaching the result. We're not grading you on how many plays you made. We're grading you on how many opportunities did you have and how many plays did you make? How many did you capitalize on?
Blitzing, I mean, Matt is a good blitzer. Tremaine was a good blitzer. But Dorian comes with a lot of force when he blitzes. Would you agree that he?
I would not want to block
he's
Dorian.
Yeah.
Yep. I would not want to block Dorian.
When you look back at the development, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. What have you seen out of Edefuan from like the time you drafted him through now? I know he's missed some time with injury.
Yeah.
Just what's his trajectory been like?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he had the injuries he had. He's missed a lot of reps, but I think he's just starting to get comfortable a little bit in what we're doing. It's hard, right? Like, he hasn't been out there for an extended period of time if you go all the way back to the spring. So he's adjusting at the appropriate pace, and there's a lot of room for growth and, as there is for everybody on our defense. And, he just needs to catch up as fast as he possibly can. You know what I mean? And we got to facilitate that for him.
When you look back at the development of some of these young linebackers when they get here, 2017 it was Matt Milano, 22 it was Terrell Bernard. What's been the key of being successful at developing these guys? Middle round draft pick guys.
Right,
It's
right.
a little different. Tremaine
Right.
Edmonds was
Right.
a
I
first
think
round.
when you talk about developing, it starts with Brandon and his staff and the great job that they do identifying that. And then, we talked about leadership earlier, and you think about Brandon, our GM. He could sit upstairs. He wants input from everybody. That's the sign of a good leader to me. And so we collaborate, and in the end, he makes his decision because that's his job. So I think it starts there, and then, when you're trying to develop players, I'll never forget there's a player here, and this is, a positive and a negative, but there was a player here that was like, when I'm in the game, I hear your voice in my head, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. That's not good. But when you don't let little things slip, and we talked about making plays, okay? I'm on the backside of a play, and maybe my hands in a run play, my hands aren't where they're supposed to be. Some people might let that go, but I think what we've done a great job here is all those little details, and it starts with Sean, is we don't let things slide. Because as soon as you start letting things slide, now it starts to become a habit. And that's not necessarily a good habit. So I think just the attention to detail, and it's hard on the young guys. It's hard on the young guys. I tell you create a lot of anxiety for these young guys. I think Terrell said the same thing. You create a lot of anxiety early, and then once it clicks where you're like, oh, I'm good to go. You know what I mean? And but I was joking about that voice is like, all that told me is two things. I don't want a player to have my voice inside their head. But secondly is like, okay, so those points are sticking with them. And I think, obviously the talent that I talked about with Brandon, getting the right guys in here, and then making sure you hone in on the details, no matter how good a player is or where they were drafted. That's our job, is every player from 1 to, what are we at now, 90? 1 to 90, that we pour into them like that.
What has allowed Jamarcus to take a step every year?
And I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but he's gained, 20-some pounds since he's been here. Strength has gotten, he's a lot stronger. Sal, can you repeat that one more time? My ADD kicked in.
Jamarcus Ingram.
Yeah,
right?
that's who we're talking about, but what was the final part of the
Just
question?
what has allowed him to take a step
Yeah.
every year? Because really, he comes
Yeah.
in and gets some spot
Yeah.
duty last year, and now
Yeah.
he's in a position to maybe be a contributor.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with it, is that, he does all those things when we first get him here, to where he's truly like developmental, and it starts with his body and his nutrition and all those things. And I think what you've seen is his confidence, the more he's gotten comfortable here, it's that confidence that's grown year in and year out. And not only us pouring into him, but what we're pouring into him, he's using. We can tell you to do things, we can drill things, we can do all those type of things. But if you're not latching on to those coaching points or those techniques and spending extra time doing it, you're not going to develop. and he's doing those type of things. So it's pretty cool to see, as I said before.
Bobby, what have you seen in Greg Rousseau as he tries to elevate his game to the next level? Obviously, had a huge game in Pittsburgh.
Greg's very intentional right now about what he wants his career to look like, and how he wants to impact the game in the NFL. And, yes, did he do some really good things against Pittsburgh? Yes, but it has no indication on what we do today at practice. And I think his intent, as I mentioned before, in his focus on what he needs to improve is at a high level. And anytime you can do that and you're constantly looking in the mirror, there's going to be opportunity for growth. And it takes two, right? It takes two. Identifying that, and then the person that has to improve on those perceived weaknesses, they continue to work on those build on their strengths and strengthen their weaknesses. And, and I think Greg's very intentional right now about that.
Limited all spring.
Yeah.
He there, but limited in terms of 11-on-11 drills. So that allowed Dorian to get a lot more maybe snaps,
Right.
11-on-11 than
Right.
he might have not. Do you feel like how much has that helped him? In his step up. This year?
I mean, for any player on our roster, and you guys asked about Joe, right? Well, what was the reason Joe started the game? Availability. So where like I said with Matt, I am frustrated and sad for him that this happened, and he'll be fine. I'm probably more upset about it than he is on the personal side, but anytime you can get reps, there's an opportunity for someone else. And Dorian's very clear on what our expectations and our standard are, and there's nothing more that Dorian wants to do than to meet those. So the reps are going to help him to do that, the live in-action reps, sitting next to TB, and that communication and the execution piece. That's in working with corners next to him and working with safeties next to him. That's huge for his confidence and his continued development.